Hello. So we have so much happening in the current energy that we're all dealing with, and like going back and forth between like different constellations and figuring out which conjunctions mean the most to us, and like having the sun in Cancer in the meantime, like giving us a little bit of time to take a break and like be nicer to ourselves. Um it seems like we're dealing with a lot of like conjunctive energy with the moon and Uranus right now. And we're also dealing with aspects of Pluto being in Capricorn in retrograde, Saturn retrograde, and Saturn retrograde and Neptune retrograde happening at the same time as Pluto's retrograde. These three planets like going into retrograde together. I honestly I just get in the habit of understanding that Saturn retrograde is gonna affect some people more than they affect people like myself. Just because I'm not part of like any system of like operation that requires like lubrication or anything. Like I'm very independent, like flowing like with my own time and energy. So it's like sometimes it's just not knowing. It's with Saturn retrograde in terms of like what normal people have to go through. It's like dealing with the unknown. Like you're fixed upon like making the right decisions all the time, but then figuring out later on that you could have made a better decision to increase the reward or like the sense of virtue from the activation. And that's what I'm connecting with. That's what I connect with more on a daily basis is like, what virtues am I exhibiting at the proper time? And is it considering the fact that like, am I considering the fact that I'm in alignment with where I need to be next? Like, we're going through a very slow shuffle this time around, but I'm just going through. But yeah, how is everybody doing during this retrograde period? Venus retrograde is about to happen. We're currently in the shadow period. And I've been focusing a lot on retrogrades since 2023 had began. Like, I'm like, okay, like they're gonna come, but when? And how are they gonna affect me? Like, because generational planets, when you think about like them going retrograde, they go retrograde for months. And like, when you come from the everyday world, it's like every day we're taught to try and make every day go the same like as possible. Like a day has a cookie cutter, and you're like trying to accomplish the same tasks every day. And like when you live life like that, the retrogrades deal with a lot more density and pressure. So there's not a lot of like retrograding happening because you're doing the same modality like every single day. Now, like a retrograde period might like seep in where your awareness, like a Neptune retrograde, would make you like dazed in the middle of your work shift, or like you're able to go on autopilot and think about other things and not be totally reliant and present in the moment. And like that's something that I dealt with. Definitely. That was probably how Neptune retrogrades manifested, was not being completely present during the shift and hoping everything goes well. Now Pluto retrograde is just dealing with like assertion, recollection, busyness. It's like, it's about like your memory almost. Like it doesn't rule the memory, it rules death. But it's like memory goes through its own stages of decomposition that are like not familiar to the physical world, but it's an aspect of familiarity to the memory and its consistency, or not consistency, but its opaqueness, like your ability to remember something so vividly that like it's like it just happened, that weakens, and Pluto rules that governance of the underworld, of the mind. So that's what we're dealing with right now. And I hope like it serves people to be a little bit more compassionate to other people in the process. I've had to learn to do the same. I have a very, very clear memory, and like I can remember stuff that happened like years ago. And I can remember what people said. I can remember how they said it. I remember where they were standing. Like, and so some people just aren't like that. And when Pluto goes retrograde, it's like it gives people permission to fall into that. It's kind of just a modality that is functionable, but it adds frustration to the conversation because it then feels like it then makes the other people who can remember feel delusional, and like they have to opt into whether or not they're gonna consider like being the bigger person or being the person who looks like their memory is going bad. And I'm not that person. I prefer to maintain the fact that I have a clear memory. I have a clear head. But alas, that's just what we're going through. Now with this Venus retrograde, just connecting with like Leo, false starts are going to be like an aspect of this quantum reality. Like, okay, first let's say a prayer. We pray to remind ourselves on this day that we are bound by our truth. Keep our hearts open so that we do not suffer the roots of denial, in part that we remain on our highest journey. Okay, thank you. Now let's begin like thinking about the false start. Like with Jupiter in Taurus, there are a lot of stagnant energy that's going to be present. He isn't retrograde, so Jupiter as a benefic is going to be heavily like lenient on the status quo as it is, already supporting itself. And like the false start is like committing to a relationship when something more solid is the like the reason that you're able to make it through your day is because you include these activities in your time period. Like that's Venus in Taurus, or not Venus in Taurus, Jupiter in Taurus. Like a lot of the things that you have like rooted your fundamental aspects of education into, to have a life for yourself that can maintain its functionality. Now this is going to be different for everybody, but there's a very strong sense of this right now where it's like things are good, like things are reflecting right, they're operating the way that they should, and I think the aspect of Saturn retrograde conjoining with a Venus retrograde is mistakenly rooting our passions and virtues against those interests. So like our virtues can sometimes get us a little off topic or off tangent, like to the point where you go a little too far. Like and that's the Neptune retrograde happening. Like, you're aspected to the understanding that this thing is able to maintain itself and function with time. Like, it's meant to last, but your virtues are taking your attention away from it. And like, there's a lot of precious time that you're gonna miss. Precious time, including whenever you get in that situation. Precious time, like including the observance and wellness, the observance of the wellness of the craft. And like going forward as if like that wasn't there because your virtue is taking you somewhere else. Like your attention is like at a 60-degree angle elsewhere, but like all your devotion is to that. And this could be very religious, like, but this Venus retrograde is like going to enlighten us to like a lot of possibilities of relationships that keep our attention away from like the positive aspect of security. And I'm considering what our Saturn retrograde looks like. But you're going forward not like being bitter about like the fact that, so it's a relatively positive Venus retrograde. Saturn retrograde, strength in reverse, strength in reverse. This is her. Now with strength in Saturn, like being able to, if the virtue that's getting in the way is the need for the relationship to be sustained elsewhere, we have some tension here on the map. We have a committed relationship to another party, another goal, and like our ascension journey is probably about what you're focusing on, because that's where your virtue is. That's your fixed light. That's where you are sat on a path and you turn to it and it looks like it goes on for eternity. Like it looks like it goes on forever. That's like your fixed fire energy. And now when strength comes in, it's like you need to either be able to allow others comfort in more time and acceptability to be delivered to them because your distractions are very temporal in this reality. Things that don't affect your long-term goal or mission on this planet. Like you're going there observing as if like you have a lot of time to spend elsewhere. Now that's proving to be frustrating for all of us. And like with Uranus and Taurus, like a lot of the rebellious things are going to be to want to be there for it, but like you want to be there, but you're caught up with the mortalities of this life, of this existence. And that like Uranus and Taurus is really like about trying to make our reality reflect our purpose as much as possible. So if your virtue is continuously aligning you elsewhere, and like this is just a stepping stone with Taurus and Jupiter, like we're going to be going through it, some transformative experiences. I had a reading the other day where I pulled for Taurus, and it was the Seven of Cups. And like with that energy, like we get forgetful of the fact that sometimes like eventually the spout dries out and there's no more like liquid water coming to sustain you. And you're aspected to the experience as if like the well is run dry. And that's kind of like the energy of Uranus that I've been tapping into, where it's like people don't have a lot of options. Like it, and sometimes it's like they just realize that the one option that they want is the thing that they need. And like that's the only thing. Or like they're continuing to postpone and delay because they didn't take the opportunity that fit them when it came, but now there's nothing else coming to them. So they're like delaying the inevitable and sitting on a sinking ship, like, or just an old mountain that won't die. But it's not fulfilling for them anymore. Like that's what they're dealing with. So Venus in retrograde, like talking about finances, like, oh wait, oh no, what was I gonna flip over? No! I had a card. I think it's this one. No, it's this one. We have the Four of Wands in reversed. So like considering the fact that the messages that we were just talking about of people having closed doors, a dry well, and nothing to go off of because they missed the opportunity when it came, like this is a proponent of that, where it's like, are my relationships with those people who made the offering even of good standing? Like that's the Venus retrograde coming through and like almost making you retell the story of your life so you can like basically get a good idea of what happened. And like Venus retrograde is like making you come to terms with it. Now, astrologically, there are no signs to really help you in that situation. There is mostly just Taurus, and that is continuing to embody yourself and recognize that you've made it this far already and that you can continue to do so in other works of life. Like just sometimes starting a new chapter with no bearings is the option for people, and they end up doing really well with it. Just because the change is what they needed. But Taurus, keep in mind that like your life is important and that it's a stepping stone into like your transformation. Like that's all that life is transformation. And we can continue to provide that to ourselves in the process and not be scared about the fact that things have been the same for too long. There's so much going on. The sun is in Cancer, but depending on when you're watching this, I don't know if that's relevant or not. I used to do timeless readings, but I'm not very for the timeless anymore. I've kind of tapped into the material progression of this world and collectively, and like trying to create messages that have checkpoints. Collectively, like we're seeing our ego with the Ace of Swords. And so it's just like, I think we're continuing to live with the template of every day mirroring itself. there's a carbon copy of this sword elsewhere. Like, there's something that is going to be repeatable, that keeps your mind in the same place as it was like 5 years ago. And I mean, sometimes people are just built that way, but it just seems like that is what this card is telling me. And to entertain curiosity, oh my gosh, we have the Two of Swords. We have the next page of the book right here. We have Greta here with her flower. And now, like, the trouble is, like, the maintaining of, like, the questions that you wouldn't even ask. Like, the guides are probably, like, at your door trying to tell you about other options and other passages that are available for you to entertain yourself with. And you're so fixed upon this relative exponential repetitiveness that keeps you in, like, how they say every day is a new day. Like, that kind of mentality is keeping you from being able to even ask the questions that sometimes your soul is yearning for. Maybe some people just feel like something is missing, like they're not able to ask the right question. They don't know where to look. Sometimes you happen upon something and you just know that that is all you need to take care of. And that is what is happening here. So, like, it's kind of hard to ask your guides to show you opportunities when you're not in the present environment that will, like, situationally, that will get you to what your guides are trying to align you to. Sometimes it's like the energy here is like, we just need to make a decision and jump off the mountain. We need to go cliff diving or something like that. Like, okay, let's be facetious. We have the Devil in reverse. Now, like, jumping off the mountain, and, like, there's no need to feel as though you automatically are entitled to become a hustler. Like, somebody who is going to be bound by the trade that they're a part of, by making it available for other people, handling the production, the transit, like the shipping, like all of the promotional work, like in advertising and marketing, like that, all of those aspects of your life don't have to be what you turn to in order to get in, like, the door. It's going to be inevitable that you're going to feel stretched thin, and as though you're like, each transaction is, like, supposed to be the one that gets you to where you're supposed to be. Because if not, it's like, why am I spending money? But the sense of, like, altering your perspective to the point where it's like your transactions are the sustenance that get you to travel. You're becoming a traveler in the process and moving from point A to point B, and, like, you're not at point B yet. You're not the devil. You're not, like, like the pyramid scheme that is getting you into all the doors that you think are available to you, like becoming the man, like the yes man or something like that. This is a complicated energy. But this is who we're dealing with. Like, this devil is a little more free-spirited and more conversation bound. He's bound to his word. He doesn't really like, and that doesn't mean lying is not an option. It's just the fact that he's a liar. And so that is like the portrayal of this character in this arc. So like money might not even be the issue, and I'm not talking about the devil properly here. Like your words are getting you around. And like he's in reverse, so it's like you might not know how important your language and turn of speech is going to be for you to be able to more or less get you what you want, but also paint the idea into someone else's head about what it is that you want them to understand about you. Because if you're making a big change and you're moving from point A to point B, it's like you have to completely redefine like your sense of identity and like go into a new persona, like, but still aligned with the same virtues. So like Leo is still present here. But with this Venus retrograde, like what's under review is like your persona. It's like, is the way that I'm behaving and showing up to the world, like proving to be the most effective way for me to get what I need accomplished? And those questions are going to be coming up during this Venus retrograde. We have so many things like happening and what we're going to be dealing with. But the Pluto retrograde like is just going to aid to that, because people are going to be more inclined to be on that same page with you, to understand that there is change going on, that like we're at a review period where your change of behavior isn't abnormal to them, just because they're inclined or enlightened to meet you at that place. Depending on who you're talking to. If you're talking to a stranger, it's not going to be like that experience. But they're going to think you're upset, like, and this is going to be Saturn retrograde. Like, if you're in a realm where you are with strangers and you're affecting your persona and personality, and like you left your job and now you're starting over, it's like, and you choose not to be honest about those happenings with strangers just because you're keeping that to yourself. It's your old life, you're moving on. That's totally acceptable. But with new strangers, like, they're not going to know anything about that. They're not going to know anything about your old life. And you have yet to have a personality. So, like, that's probably why this devil's in reverse here. Is because, like, we're dealing with the fact that this part of your personality is underdeveloped. And you just have, like, your natural wit and charm to get you by. Like, situational stuff that can bring you closer to people. But like as far as like networking goes, like you have no options unless you have a plan. That probably does it for the Venus retrograde reading. I'm not too concerned about like finishing off the reading with any of the other retrogrades. I want to finish it there. But go ahead, leave a like, comment, talk about like your experiences with retrograde, and see how everyone else is doing. And I hope you guys have a fantastic transit, and I will see you in the next one.